So good evening everyone and welcome to the stream. I hope you can hear me very well. So I just want to say hello to everyone who has appeared on the stream tonight. Let me just move this down a little bit. Okay. So we start off with Keith. Great to see you, Keith. Hope you're very well. Killer, thank you so much for moderating once again. We also have Anthony. Great to see you, Anthony. Let me see. Dr. Johan, great to see you once again. I hope you're well. Mark, great to see you, Mark. Tom, great to have you on again, moderating. Great to see you. Dano, great to have you on. Conservator, great to see you on the stream again. Stefan, great to see you. Morag, great to have you on once again. Tiny Demolition Lover, great to have you on once again. I hope everything's well with you in Scotland. Kenny, great to have you on. Pete, great to see you. Christian, great to have you on. Danilo, great to see you. Nathan Snook, great to see you. Grant, great to have you on, Grant. Mistake Not, great to have you on, and great to see you on Patreon as well and on the Discord server. Maggie, great to have you, Maggie. Great to see you this evening. Herbie, great to have you on, Herbie. We also have David. Thanks for coming on the stream, David. Lenny Harry, great to have you on once again, Lenny. Hope you're well. We have 1,000 subs before the end of the quarantine. Great to have you on. Kenny, great to have you on, Kenny. Or did I already say that? Sky Blaze, great to see you. Aaron, great to have you on. Night Raven, great to have you on moderating once again. Magister, great to see you. Hope you're well. And who else have we got? We have Monkeytron, great to have you on, Monkey. Todd, great to see you, Todd. Danilo, great to have you, Danilo. We have Ministerian, great to have you on, Ministerian. Hope you're well. Prince Charming, great to see you again. Yanror, great to have you on. Then we have Kamen, great to see you. Bucky for breakfast, great to have you on. Rumpelstiltskin, great to see you. QA Library, great to have you on again. Mark, great to have you on, Mark. Paul, great to see you again. Then we have Glasgow Kiss, great to see you, Glasgow Kiss. Akuma, great to see you. And we have Andrew, great to have you on, Andrew. Wee Scott's Dog, great to see you, Wee Scott's Dog. Hope you're well. I should be making the soup. Fortunately, I can multitask. Good for you. I am terrible at multitasking. Dave, great to see you, Dave. Aaron, great to have you on. Kei Ching Muller, great to see you on, Kei Ching Muller. Kei Muller. Okay, I hope everyone is very well tonight. Wow, we're up to 100 viewers already. That's amazing. Timu, great to see you, Timu. I hope you're well. And apologies to anyone who I didn't say hello to. I'll try my best as people come on the stream. So I just want to talk about a few things before we get into the mainstream tonight. So I just want to talk about the new playlist that excuse me, I promise I don't have COVID. If I do, make sure to put a mask over your speakers. So I just want to talk about the new playlist, which is a philosophy playlist, but also Fool of the Week. So there's a new video for Fool of the Week dropping tomorrow, so I hope you'll enjoy that. Everyone, I got a lot of very positive feedback over the first Fool of the Week, which was featuring Marc Francois. A lot of comments, a lot of views on that video. So that was amazing. Yes, guys, remember to hit the like button. Please do hit the like button. It helps the hamsters and helps the stream. So every week I promise you guys, I'm going to upload a Fool of the Week. Normally Fool of the Week is suggested by people on Discord. So if you're on Discord, make sure to go to the Fool of the Week part of the server and suggest someone. We always get lots of nominations, so I already have a few names maybe also for next week, but we'll see if something else comes along. But Fool of the Week is very popular, so I'm going to maintain that. And as the channel gets bigger and we get more and more people on Patreon or on Discord or just subscribing to the channel. I'm going to, add more things to the channel, so I want to expand it and maintain, of course, politics and Brexit and this type of issue, but also add other things like philosophy or technology is another idea. I'd like something I'm passionate about, and I'd like to add that as well. But we'll see going ahead how things work out. And as some changes take place on the channel, those who are on Discord will probably know about them first. Now, I also want to talk about 2 videos that I uploaded recently. Now, one of them was about it was Jeff Taylor doing a video about Italy leaving the European Union. And I responded to Jeff, but there's a number of other things I'd like to talk about that I didn't talk about in that video. This idea that Italy would be interested in leaving the European Union. Italy was one of the founding members, of course. And the politics in Italy is somewhat similar. I'm not going to talk a lot about this. I just want to make a few comments about it. But a lot of the politics in Italy is extremely complicated. And you have the north-south divide, where the north of Italy is the richer part of the country. The more industrialized areas are in the north, while in the south there's mass unemployment and there is the mafia. And this is a very important thing to remember. So when money comes from the European Union and is invested in different parts of Italy, unfortunately, a lot of the money is sucked up by corrupt politicians and the mafia, for example. And this is something that, it's beyond Brexit. This is something outside Brexit. And while there are a number of Eurosceptic parties in Italy, and many Italians are confused about what the European Union does for Italy, someone like Nigel Farage coming along and attempting to convince the Italian people to leave the European Union, I don't see it as something highly likely. As I said, there are Eurosceptic parties. Jeff Taylor is Bob Hoskins teleported from the 1980s. That's right. So I understand Jeff is trying to build something that maybe doesn't really exist. He's trying to build this idea that, there are many countries around Europe and they're just itching at the chance of leaving the European Union. What happened in the UK is very different to what's happening in other parts of Europe. And I don't think it's something that could be emulated. Brexit couldn't be emulated in other parts of Europe, because we have to remember that while the UK was a member, it at the beginning, we can say maybe about 20 years ago, it was an active member and it was adding to the European Union. But over the last 20 years, this situation has changed, and many successive governments in the UK have continued to distance themselves from the European Union, and this isn't the case with other European countries. Governments work hand in glove with the European Union. So the situation with the UK is quite different. The Italian mob has always fascinated me, based on how long generation after generation decide, decade after decade, they have been around and pulling strings in Italy and all over the world. That's true. Is Jeff in the chat? Jeff normally jumps into the chat. He was on the chat last time. It's not the official Jeff, I don't think. Maybe it is, and he's just keeping a low profile. So this idea that it could be emulated in Italy or in France, I'm not dismissing it completely, but it's not as likely as what would happen in the UK. Okay, and just one other thing I want to talk about is the video that I uploaded also today with Magic from LBC. Now, I admire what Majid is trying to do. I said this in the video, but I don't think it's possible. I don't think that it's possible to bridge the gap between Remainers and Brexiteers. And I was frankly surprised that Majid would used Nigel Farage as a go-to or as someone to ask for help in dealing with extremism or the Muslim situation that he was talking about. I really don't understand why he went to Nigel Farage. But I talked about that in the video, and I am somewhat disappointed that Majid has gone down this road. I understand in a way why he wants to build perhaps a liberal response to post-Brexit Britain, and that would make sense. But you can't negotiate, you can't make peace with people who want to destroy everything. You know, in a way, Brexiteers, not all of them, but the ones who... You have to remember there are different types of Brexiteers. There are the ones who want to make money from the situation, the Nigel Farages or the Jacob Rees-Moggs. They want to profit from it. There are people who just want to eliminate all checks and balances in the UK. And then there are the other people who just want to burn everything down. And Majid is attempting to reach across the aisle or to play, reach out his hand and make peace with the people who want to burn everything down. And you can't make peace with those people because they are not interested in making things better. They're not interested in improving Britain. Majid is an extremist himself. I think he was saying that he actually successfully sued someone for saying that he said he wasn't an extremist, but he worked with them, or he didn't say the word extremist, he was a radical or something like that. But I have to be careful what I say. I don't want to be sued by him, so I'm not going to touch that aspect of his history because they are insane. Some Brexiteers want to eliminate all checks. No, all checks and balances. Or maybe all checks as well. Farage doesn't speak Italian, I assume, and the Italians don't speak English. He'll be useless in Italy. Most of the people who would support leaving the European Union wouldn't actually speak English. We're talking about people who probably haven't finished high school. Okay, they're not people who understand how Italy is integrated into the European Union and how it works and how the European Union works itself. I'm not an expert, of course, on the European Union, but these people who would be Nigel Farage would be pouring poison into would be people who would have absolutely no understanding of the European Union. He doesn't speak Italian. I don't think it's that really that important, but he's not the type of person who would be able to reach out to them. But that's not really important. I talked about that in the video. It's not so important that Nigel Farage is someone who can, emulate the typical Italian. It's more about funneling money towards people who can. So if there are politicians like Salvini or whoever who want Italy to leave the European Union, Farage can direct big money in their direction. That's, I think, what Farage would be more interested in doing than doing rallies or something like that. Because it'd be pointless, because nobody in Italy knows who Farage is, or very few people. Okay, so let's get on to the stream tonight. So I remember him calling, Glasgow Kiss says, I remember him calling indie supporters terrorists. The irony of, the Brexit position of we want to leave the European Union because we don't want to be controlled by an external body. And then when the Scots say we want to leave the UK because we don't want to be ruled by an external body, Brexiteers say, no, you can't. You have to stay in the United Kingdom. No referendum for you. The guy who jumped Majid in London was probably a Farage supporter. Majid grates on people. It's not that Farage is clever. It's that his followers are thick. You're probably true. Yes, Maggie. Great to have you on the stream, Maggie. Max is showing off his new car. Yes, this is my new car. So this is an amazing. It's actually, I discovered this story just before doing the live stream. It's a little bit of fluff, but it is also maddening at the same time. So it says here, in the United States, man buys Lamborghini after getting nearly $4 million in coronavirus loans, authorities say. Oops, let me go. I'll do that later. Okay. A Florida man has bought luxury goods, including a Lamborghini sports car, after receiving nearly $4 million in loans from Paycheck Protection Program. From the Paycheck Protection Program that has been charged with fraud, federal authorities have announced. Well, at least he has been arrested. PPP payments are meant to help small businesses hit by the coronavirus pandemic. So obviously what has happened here, Italy, the only country so broke, the Rozzers have Lamborghinis. I'd rather call cases like this Lamborghini disgusting. The money was meant to save businesses and livelihoods, yes. This idea. So what happened was this man was given loans by the federal government to pay payrolls, so to pay people's wages. But instead, what did he do? He, put the money in his bank account and decided to spend it on himself. A U.S. Department of Justice complaint alleges that David Hines applied on behalf of a few companies for more than $13.5 million in PPP loans. Used money he received to shop at luxury stores and resorts in Miami Beach, then lied about how much he paid to employees. Hines was charged with one count of bank fraud, one count of making false statements to financial institutions, and one count of engaging in transaction in unlawful proceeds. Bank of America approved the PPP applications for Hines. In each, he claimed 70 employees with monthly payroll expenses totaling $4 million. He was paid $3,984,557. But his accounts for preceding months indicated monthly inflows and outflows of $200,000 on payments resembling payroll, where for small amounts to just 12 people. On receiving the PPP funds, he made two payments of $30,000 to a recipient noted as Mom. Within days, he received the PPP funds. Haynes purchased a 2020 Lamborghini Huracan sports car for approximately $318,000, which he registered jointly in his name and the name of one of his companies. Well, he was very stupid. He should have registered it in his wife's name or something, and then they couldn't take it from him. Welcome, Obidon. Also, why did he buy a Lamborghini? Buy a Tesla. It's much better car. In Washington, Democrats and Republicans are debating whether the renewed COVID-19 relief payments and business loans set to expire at the end of this month. So then the article just goes into about the stimulus and the money that's been raised by the federal government for businesses and poor people out of their job, or people who have been furloughed. But this idea, registering, and then it's good that he was caught, but how many people were not caught? This probably raised some alarm bells because of the numbers he was taking out loans for. If he had done it on a much smaller scale, probably he would have gotten away with it. But thankfully, he didn't get away with it, and he is going to be punished. So that's some good news there. Let me just read some of your comments. Is Jeff Taylor an undertaker? His videos always look like they're made in a funeral home. I would like to know what's behind that curtain. Yes, Will. 57k monthly salaries on average for each of the 70 employees. Claimed that no one found is fishy. Not a mark on my wee Toyota Hiace. Yeah, greedy and dumb. Probably just the tip of the iceberg, sadly. I agree, Aaron. Yeah, I think there's it's highly likely that many people, especially because of the pandemic, and there's so much pressure to get money out as soon as possible to businesses, of course, many people are going to take advantage of it and abuse it. And I think many people will probably get away with it. You could buy a used Lambo. Going for a new one was dumb. Yeah. Tesla are crap. Mini Cooper rules. Okay. Same happened in Berlin. They handed out emergency state aid without much checking, and realized later that suddenly a lot of people seemed to run small businesses. Max Bullerhatman says October will be big layoff month. What do you think? So I haven't seen Buller Hatman's latest video on that. Will be a big layoff month. Well, the end of the support for workers will be in October. Now, if they extend it, it probably won't be a big layoff month. But if they don't extend the furlough scheme or any type of financial support for businesses or for workers, then yes, I agree, it will be a big layoff month. See, there is this idea, there's a big problem at the moment that many people have been laid off work, and we assume it's because of COVID, and they will return to work when COVID has been dealt with. Now, there are two problems with this. One is many companies may not actually rehire those people again. Let's, for example, if I run a restaurant, and before the pandemic, I had a staff of 10 people, for example. Now, because of social distancing and because of the lack of foot traffic, I may need to reduce that workforce from 10 to 5, for example. So those 5 other people, for now, I could say, look, I'm going to furlough those people. But when October comes, I may say, look, I can't furlough them anymore. They have to be laid off. And those people are not going to be able to get back into employment. Now, this is one scenario. Another scenario is that many companies may actually just close because they're not able to recover from the pandemic. Even if they are able to reopen, the costs that they have been facing, the profit margins being so low in certain industries, many companies just can't afford to stay in business, and they will close. And the employees that they have, of course, will be sent home. At the moment, some of them are probably being furloughed, and if this ends in October, yes, I agree with your comment that a lot of people will be laid off in October. October is going to be an interesting month. I agree, Killer. It's going to be just 2 months before Brexit, before the end of the transition period. October will be the point of no return for Brexit No Deal. Phil did a video on Halloween being particularly haunted this year. Yes. You have... Now, there is a possibility that Boris Johnson gets some type of deal. I don't think so, but there is a possibility. What's interesting is that many Brexiteers are extremely worried about what Boris Johnson is doing with Brexit at the moment. Artemis, great to see you. Welcome to the stream. I hope you're well. When are the unemployment data due? I don't know, Aaron. I'm not familiar with the release date of the unemployment figures. The economy has crashed, so layoffs would happen anyway. It's just going to be more due to restrictions. Money is being lent with no hope of repayment. Bill Barr is Trump's October surprise after his dog and pony show at the Senate hearings today. What is a bare bones deal? So what I mean by a bare bones deal is that Boris Johnson will get something from the European Union, basically no deal, but they will say, okay, we'll give you, you leave without a deal, but we'll give you something that you can say is a deal. I can't think of what would be put into it, because it could be anything. It could be something on security, it could be something on tariffs, it could be something on a level playing field, it could be anything. But all I think Boris Johnson needs is some type of deal that he can shake hands or bump elbows with the leaders of the EU and say, look, I have a deal. All he needs is something to convince Brexiteers. To confuse Brexiteers, actually, not convince them. Confuse and then convince, perhaps. And he just needs to come back to Westminster, say, here I have my deal. And the Brexiteers will be, yay, Boris has defeated the EU. He's got a deal. And that will buy time. But after, people will realize that this is not a deal. But some people will be happy with that. People will be happy to leave without a deal. But other people will not be happy to leave without a deal. But I still don't know who wants to leave without a deal and who wants to leave with a deal on the Brexiter side. Bankers in Dublin, Paris and Frankfurt would very much like a no-deal exit. Yes, because it would destroy the City of London. But Boris has been asking for an extension to the transition period for the City of London, which is quite interesting. Now, I don't know if the European Union will allow that. So he's like, let industry go to hell, but keep the extension, keep the transition period for the City of London. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. So we'll move away from that for a moment. Now, all of you know, or most people know who are on the stream, that I'm no huge fan of Boris Johnson. But, and this is a huge but, especially big but, it's a Kim Kardashian style but, Boris Johnson may be doing something right for a change. So let's see this video.
I've always wanted to lose weight for ages and ages, and I think many people, I struggle with my weight, go up and down, but since I recovered from coronavirus, I've been steadily building up my fitness. I don't want to make any excessive claims, because I've only really just started concentrating on it, but I'm at least a stone down. I'm more than a stone down. But when I went into ICU, when I was really ill, I was way overweight. I'm only about 5'10", at the outside, and I was too fat. I start the day by going for a run with the dog, and quite a gentle run, but actually getting faster and faster now as I get fitter. And the great thing about going for a run at the beginning of the day is that nothing could be worse for the rest of the day. Once, if you really go in hard, if you really take some exercise at the beginning, the rest of the day will be a breeze. So there are health reasons, but you feel much better, and that's the number one thing I would say. You actually feel more.
I'm sorry, you can't hear the video? Let me see if I can adjust the sound.
Full of energy if you can get your weight down. And the other thing, obviously, is that if you can get your weight down a bit, and protect your health, you'll also be protecting the NHS. Gyms are great, but you don't need to have a gym. There are amazing things on your phone these days, amazing apps, fantastic trainers that you can watch on YouTube. What we're doing now with our better health strategies, just trying to help people a little bit to bring their weight down, not in a excessively bossy or nannying way, I hope. We want this one really to be sympathetic to people, to understand the difficulties that people face with their weight, the struggles that everybody faces, or many people face to lose weight, and just to be helpful.
Okay, so let's leave aside the whole NHS part of this, because we know that Boris Johnson, his government don't give a crap about the NHS, and Conservatives in general don't give a crap about the NHS. But this idea of convincing people to do exercise, are we on the light relief already? No, Tom, not yet. Look, and I'm a sucker maybe for this. I'm weak. I try to find humanity in people. I've talked about this before. I look at Boris Johnson, I see a terrible person, but I still try to find some humanity within him. And I know most of you are probably going, okay, you're just naive. Boris Johnson doesn't give a crap about these people or give a crap about anyone else. But I try to find something positive here. And I agree with this. Look, let's once again leave the NHS part out, because I'm extremely critical of Boris Johnson and the Tories when it comes to the NHS. But this idea of convincing people to lose weight and become healthy, I agree. You're a sucker on this, Max. But I agree with him. I think it's a good idea. Try to convince people to eat healthy, to get more exercise. Now, the problem with this is not so much people like me or some of you guys who will separate Boris Johnson from it and understand, this is good advice. It's people who are on the right, or the so-called libertarians, who would say, oh no, how dare the government tell people to lose weight. Look, the government have a responsibility to promote education, to look after, to make sure people have a home to live in, that they have food on their table. And I think it's also important that the government promote the health and well-being of citizens. And sometimes they have to tell people, look, you shouldn't eat junk food. You should try to do more exercise. This is not something negative. This is something positive. Once again, let's leave apart Boris Johnson for a moment and look at the message. I think the message is a good one. Healthy people are better, are more productive, okay, if you want to look at it from that point of view. But also healthier people are happier people. And maybe people are more willing to engage in their community if they're healthier. If somebody is unhealthy, they're maybe sitting at home, they can't get out of their chair. I'm not talking about disability. I'm just talking about somebody who's maybe a slob. Okay. If we can convince them to get fit, maybe they will get more active in their community. They can try to start initiatives, try to encourage others to get involved in the community and change the community for the good. Now, once again, I'm probably naive here. But if somebody is a slob, and, I can be a slob like everyone else, when you're a slob, you prefer just to sit on the sofa and, eat crisps and watch TV. But if you're out and about getting active with people, not physically in fights or whatever, but in a sense, if you're fit and active, then you're more likely to contribute to society, I think. But once again, maybe I'm just looking at all of this through rose-tinted glasses. Boris is doing something good, but the comments have politically tinted spectacles. They can't admit when they've done something good. The English are never happy and drink beer. Criticize him for the things he actually does bad, like PPE, not following science early on, skip cover meetings, failure to... Yeah, no, I have criticized Boris Johnson on numerous occasions for the things that he has done badly. Max, the biggest way to help people's health is to give them far more say in the workplace. I agree, 100%. Just give me a beer and pineapple pizza. Okay, Christian, out. No, pineapple pizza is renders you a persona non grata on this stream. It's okay. Managed to put the soup out. Flambe move was deliberate, by the way. If advertising spend can convince people to vote for Brexit, why do you think they will fight food manufacturers? Yeah, I'm not saying it's an easy victory or it will be an easy battle, but a person can get out of their chair. That's not fat. That's obese. Not you, Max. The people in the comments. You can say what he's saying is right. On this occasion, is right. I support all of this, but his context. In his context, I see a man wanting to reduce spending to the NHS, so he must not increase taxes. Yeah, in a way, Boris Johnson is maybe not the best person to be promoting this. He's getting drunk, okay? Yes, Raymond, getting drunk from time to time, okay? Don't make it a habit. I broke down and had a pineapple pizza this weekend out of protest. Damn you, Kenny. They have that in Sweden. But what you're going to see immediately following this is the... oh my God, what's his name? I did a response video to him. Brendan O'Neill, the Brendan O'Neills of this world, who will be crying, into their cappuccinos saying, how dare you try to convince me to be a better person or to look after my health? How dare you do that? How dare the government care about people's well-being? Now, once again, maybe the government don't care about people's well-being, but if it encourages people to eat healthier, to get more exercise, then it's a good thing. If people are healthier, they're less likely to need to go to the NHS, to go to hospital. I mentioned the pizza, and I get threatened by the mob at the door. Be consistent, Max. You cannot say fat, you must say gravitationally challenged. If it's structured properly, then it could be a good idea. A delicious rebellion there. It's a middle-class choice now for competitive sport. Don't know what Max is on about. Non grata goes very well with pineapple. My friend ran a youth service company and got closed down to funding cuts from austerity, and he was a died in the wall Brexit person. Yeah, it's like my service has been closed down. The service that I'm providing to young people has been closed down because of austerity, but roll on austerity 2.0. I'm not fat, I'm horizontally challenged. This is not about fat, okay? It's about health, okay? So somebody can be fat, but they are healthy. So someone can also be thin, but unhealthy. It's not about fat, it's about being healthy. I don't want to get into that type of discussion. So I'll move along, okay? But I do think this is something that should be considered. It should be considered for the public. Government must look after, once again, people's health. Now we're talking about pizzas. But government should look after people's health. It shouldn't be indifferent to people's health. And of course, there will be always the conflict between companies that want to advertise their junk food on TV or online, and governments fighting to save people from those advertisements. We're going down a rabbit's hole. Okay. I'm going to stick with Boris Johnson, and unfortunately this one is less fluffy. This topic is about a possible second wave. So let's hear what Boris Johnson had to say.
This morning, Madrid announced that face masks now have to be worn outdoors in the Spanish capital at all times, which makes Spain's attempt to persuade the UK to change its travel advice even less likely to succeed.
Okay, so if you're not familiar, if you've been living under a pizza, so the UK had allowed people to travel from the UK to Spain for their holiday, and then within 24 hours notice, the government said anyone returning from Spain will have to self-isolate for 14 days. Now, for some people, that's probably not a huge problem, but for others, they risk losing their jobs. If they come back from Spain from their holiday, they risk, in a sense, being told by their employer, no, you have to come to work. Now, the law is not very clear as to what would happen if somebody returned from Spain and was told by their employer, you have to come to work. Well, would they be protected by the state, or would they be forced back into their job? Tories have actually defunded the institutions and services that could have helped with obesity crisis for decades. Boris is just a fluff policy for popularity. Damn you, Glasgow Kiss. I thought I was doing something good there. I thought I had found some humanity in Boris Johnson, and there you come along and steal that away from me. And you know you're right. Try the kiwi pizza. Damn you, Verti. Stop with kiwi and pineapple. Blasphemy. Anyway, so this is a huge problem. People are coming back from Spain. Now, this opens up another question. Why did people go on holiday during a pandemic?
And today, Boris Johnson hinted that similar action against other European destinations could follow.
What we have to do is take swift and decisive action where we think that the risks are starting to bubble up again. And let's be absolutely clear about what's happening in Europe, amongst some of our European friends. I'm afraid you are starting to see, in some places, the signs of a second wave of the pandemic.
I think it's going to be not just in Europe, but it's also going to be in the UK. It's going to happen everywhere. This was predicted. You have social distancing measures, you have lockdowns, they reduce the number of new cases. Then as you open, you're going to see new cases, you're going to see new infections, and people will forget about social distancing, people will forget about wearing masks. Lots of bubbles, Boris. I don't know why he chooses such language, bubbling up. I think it's a way of distracting. You hear him talking about something terrible, and you hear the word bubbling, and then you focus on bubbling, and you don't listen to anything else he has to say. And then you go around the rest of the day thinking about bubbles. Scotland should close its border for the English. Jacob Rees-Mogg said that's not possible. Boris doesn't have European friends. Why people went on holiday during pandemic, Max? The same reason why lockdown was necessary to impose in March. Yes. We have to get over the first wave to have a second wave, Max. He's a fake eccentric. Boris Johnson is a fake eccentric. Bubbling up like a vomit after. Oh my God, that's disgusting. He's just like Trump and putting out ambers. And he's putting out ambers of course. Giorgio, welcome to the stream. I hope you're well. Wibble bubble out for breakfast. That's disgusting. As bad as pineapple on pizza. It was spread from October because it was right off the back of the cold virus. Probably. Spain's numbers are better than the UK's, and they control even more than the UK's side. O'Brien today spoke about this and had callers. So I must check out James O'Brien's video. I'll probably do a response to it if I can. Pink Elephant, look it up on YouTube. It's the funniest. Verti, you're going off topic here. We have to stay on the pandemic.
The Spanish town of Totana has gone back into lockdown only a month after the last one was lifted. A gathering at this bar triggering a second COVID outbreak. In Catalonia, all
sorry, this is completely unrelated. Who would name a pub Dubai? Are there pubs in Dubai? I don't think there are any pubs in Dubai. I've never been to Dubai, but I imagine there aren't any pubs in Dubai. Tom, thank you very much for that kind donation, Tom. So, blasphemy pizzas, maybe I'll look into it. Pub Dubai really is a strange name to call a pub. Anyway.
A gathering at this bar triggering a second COVID outbreak. In Catalonia, all bars and restaurants were shut from midnight last Friday. Numbers on beaches near Barcelona are being restricted as well. Today, Germany and Belgium advised holidaymakers not to travel to several Spanish regions. But the UK's advice against travel to the whole country, now including the Balearic Islands, is causing the most offence.
The error, in my judgment, is based on considering the cumulative incidence in the whole country, because I have to say that 64.5% of new cases are registered in 2 areas. In most of Spain, the incidents are very much lower than even the numbers in the UK.
In the Austrian resort of Lake Wolfgang, over 50 cases were confirmed over the weekend, including seasonal hotel workers. The summer weather leading to the neglect of rules on social distancing is now a major concern.
And this has been raised on numerous occasions, the problem of having, as we end the lockdown, as we leave our lockdowns, as we ignore social distancing, people will congregate, people will take more risks. It's the sort of ironic problem with, or the paradoxical problem with the low number of cases. When the cases are high, people are attentive. People stay alert, as Boris Johnson would want. As the numbers decrease, people ease their alert status. And of course, you end up with having more cases. And then people don't understand why there are more cases. And then we eventually have to go back into lockdown.
Summer is a problem. This virus likes all weathers, but what it particularly likes is jumping from one person to another when we come in close contact. So let's not give it that opportunity. So the second wave idea, we are in the first wave. It's going to be one big wave. It's going to go up and down a bit. Now, the best thing is to flatten it and turn it into just something lapping at your feet.
According to the latest weekly figures, Spain has recorded more than 13 cases per 100,000 people. The UK's rate is less than half that. France is doing slightly better, and Germany better again. And Italy, with fewer than 3 cases per 100,000, better still. Turkey and Greece are very different stories. Turkey with almost 4 times Greece's infection rate. Austria, though, recorded a figure of more than 9. And danger signs from Belgium and Croatia, both registering almost twice as many cases per head as the UK.
I want to be really blunt and really clear with people that, you know, I wouldn't, if you're asking me, I wouldn't be booking a foreign holiday right now because of these reasons. I'd be choosing, if I had the time to go on holiday, I'd be choosing to spend it here in Scotland.
And that's what governments should be doing. They should be encouraging people to holiday at home. You know, you could be a bit more draconian and say, no, people cannot fly to Spain. But have it like a lockdown. But Frank, but it's a balance once again. The more draconian you become, the more resistance you have from the public. Because once again, the public will say, look, there are no cases. Yes, there are no cases because you're being draconian. So let's open things up. And then you open things up, and then you end up having more cases.
Catalonia today introduced a ban on informal outdoor parties. Those who ignore it can be fined up to €15,000. It's a desperate bid to rescue Spain's tourism industry, which accounts for well over 10% of the Spanish economy. But
I think for Spain, and unfortunately this has to be the case, Spain needs to say 2020 is a dead year regarding tourism. Because by attempting to make some money from tourism, even a little bit, you risk having a second wave, and you risk being under lockdown for much longer period. Unfortunately, I think it has to be so. You have to say goodbye to tourism for 2020 and plan for the future. But I think what the Spanish government are doing instead is hoping that they can manage the situation, and I don't think they will be able to.
But it's also intended to save lives and curb the complacency, which now threatens all of Europe.
Jonathan Rugman reporting. Well, just before we came on air, I spoke to Hans Kluge, the World Health Organization's regional director for Europe, and I began by asking him whether Europe is experiencing signs of a second wave.
Right, there is a phenomenon which we are observing across the region, but frankly speaking, which is not unexpected. Whether this is still the first wave or a second wave is less important than to realize it is because of the change in human behavior. Basically, the virus is still with us. We don't have a treatment yet, nor an effective vaccine, so we have to learn to live with the virus. But what's important as well is that a second wave does not mean a second lockdown of the economy and the educational system. We have learned to manage COVID transmission while having a running economy and educational system at the same time. But the key is we know what to do. Let's make it hard for the virus. Let's not make it too easy for the virus.
But I think the problem, and I agree with him, but the problem is that as soon as people see lockdowns ending, they think the virus has gone away. They think the problem has been resolved, and the people say to themselves, okay, let's go back to normal. Let's go back to the way things were before. And of course, then what happens is you end up with a second wave.
Is the key problem that it is summer weather, relaxing people, letting them gather in large numbers, increasing the chances of cross-infection?
Right. What we see is that the incidence is increasing in a number of countries, but not necessarily the mortality, because we see that now younger generations are being infected because they are gathering together, sometimes even larger events, which should be avoided. But it's important not to point any fingers. People face a fatigue. They don't want to miss a summer. So I also see a lot of people behaving positively to live with the virus as a kind of a demonstration of civism. So we have to encourage this, and in particularly...
And that's why it's extremely important that messaging coming from the government is clear. It's not that the public don't want to do their bit. In most cases, the public want to do their bit. They want to act reasonable, in a reasonable way. They want to act responsible. responsibly, sorry. They want to act responsibly. But if the message is confused, then how can people act responsibly? You know, if people are told, well, you should go to work, but only go to work if you are necessary, but don't use public transport, but do use public transport if you have a mask, or, you know, there were so many different confusing messages sent out by Boris Johnson's government. Of course, people couldn't follow the rules because they didn't know which rules to follow.
Protect the elderly, protect the vulnerable, because in any case, if today it are the younger generations, they will infect at some stage the elder populations. So everyone has a responsibility.
Should we be taking foreign holidays? Should we be crossing borders to go on holiday?
That is the $1 billion question I'm getting every day, John. We have to adhere to the basics of public health. And the UK, for example, has, top public health experts. Hand washing, disinfecting, the physical distancing, masks where we cannot avoid any crowded settings. There are different risks. If I go running in the woods in Dordogne is different than if I would go to a big concert, right? So in that sense, let's not have one size fits all, but listen to the advices of WHO, of the national authorities.
And once again, the problem is that the politicians will not listen to the WHO. The politicians will not listen to their experts, because the experts will say you need to impose a lockdown, and they will say we don't want to do that because we need to raise taxes, we need to raise finance. How can we avoid a lockdown? So every step taken will not be the best step taken. It will be a compromise. And because the economy comes first, then you're going to see more and more cases, like what's happening in the United States as well.
And use, after all, a lot of common sense.
But I notice you've stepped back from actually saying, no, you shouldn't cross borders.
Closing borders is never going to stop the virus. Of course, at one point, if we see real exacerbation, we have to be brave, and more brave this time on travel advice. Absolutely.
I disagree with him. Of course, maybe I'm not the right person to disagree with him. He is an expert. But the WHO will get things wrong. They are scientists. When a new virus appears, they will make assumptions about the virus. They must present the facts, and the facts about the virus changed. Massive change is coming to those. It's coming, and those who hide under blankets will be eventually losers. So this idea of closing borders, I think it's necessary. Now, I'm not an expert, so I'm probably not the right person to question him. But, for example, if the UK had closed its borders, then I think it would have had much fewer cases. Countries that have closed their borders and strictly controlled movement in and out of the country had fewer cases. So there is a correlation there.
Absolutely. I myself, as an infectious disease specialist, I believe in what we call the precautionary principle. WHO and authorities have been blamed often lately that we were a little bit too late. But this is science. And now what we see is, because of the speed and the scale of devastation, we cannot wait till we always have the science right. So,
and to come to his defense here, when the scientists say there's a risk of a pandemic, and they ask governments to put in place measures to mitigate or to prevent the spread of the pandemic, and governments invest that money to prevent it, and the pandemic doesn't arrive, the scientists are blamed for wasting money. So what happens the next time is the politicians don't listen to the scientists, or don't heed completely their advice, And we've had this scenario now where the scientists were saying X and the politicians were doing Y. Okay, sorry about that. Something happened to the stream. Apologies. Hamster's on strike. Yes. Okay. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but we'll move on. So I just want to do a little bit of. You're back. Yes, phew, back. Me too. I'm happy to be back. I'm not sure what happened. So let's just take a little bit of a break from all of this. Depressing pandemic, and let's see a funny video for a break.
She keeps a hand sanitizer in a secret cabinet. Let them use soap, she says, just like Marie Antoinette. Waiting for the remedy will feel like an eternity while asymptomatic a-holes are infecting us all. Don't smoke weed or cigarettes, social distance etiquette. The shit is spreading like lice. Killer COVID-19. Stuck here in quarantine. I refuse to watch Tiger King. Song parodies destroy your mind. Ooh, they recommend we stay inside till Dr. Fauci is satisfied. Or you're gonna die. Pandemic, we needed more preparedness. The response is pathetic, and Trump's made it a giant mess. This virus from China has kicked his big behind her. You probably still think he's the Messiah if you're that way inclined. I wish Obama was still president. When he spoke, at least you knew what he meant. Articulate and precise. Killer COVID-19. Hydroxychloroquine. Chug it down with a shot of bleach. Do anything but use your mind. Droplets go right through your homemade mask. To close talk everyone you pass. Simultaneously panic buying, sweating on people as you're jogging. You'll absolutely make us sick. They'll infect you. Killer COVID-19. What about the economy? All I care about is the economy. Oh yeah, I guess some people died. Ooh, they recommended good advice to stay the fuck at home inside.
That's amazing. Fantastic. Let me just read some of your... we'll read some of the comments before we go ahead. Anthony C. says, we need a Mrs. Brown Boys lockdown special. My God. No. Max, did you see Sacha Baron Cohen singing at a right-wing rally? I saw part of it. I saw a clip of that scene where he pretends to be a Trump supporter or something like that. That was hilarious. I didn't see all of it, but I saw part of it, and it was hilarious, the part that I saw. We've done... You're not keen on Mrs. Brown? No, it's a crime against humanity. Ireland suffered a potato famine, so the revenge for towards the world for not stepping in and helping is Mrs. Brown's boys. The virus might well have travelled on passenger planes and passengers on planes, but have passengers been infecting other passengers? I think so. It's yes, Killer, 100% correct. Mrs. Brown Boys is pineapple pizza. Actually, worse than pineapple pizza. Savage Eye is a decent Irish comedy, not Mrs. Brown's Boys. Mrs. Brown's Boys, I've just seen about 2 minutes of it. I said, please take this monstrosity off the TV. Okay, so let's move on to serious issues once again. We have this article from The Guardian. I use The Guardian a lot. I find it very good. So it says here about Brexit. So Brexit will deliver double shock to UK economy, study finds. Not exactly news. Most of us knew this was going to happen. So let's see what the article has to say anyway. So a Brexit hit is looming for sectors that have emerged relatively unscathed from the COVID-19 pandemic, analysis by the London School of Economics suggests. The London School of Economics report says Brexit would deliver a double shock to the economy, with business conditions worsening for those sectors that have survived the impact of coronavirus and lockdown measures, whether Boris Johnson secures a deal with the EU or not. This is very important to remember, that if Boris Johnson gets a deal, even a good deal, it's still going to be extremely damaging to the economy. Brexit is going to be extremely damaging. The best solution for the UK would be somehow to say, we're actually going to extend the transition period for another 5 years. So the UK would remain, in a sense, aligned with the EU. This would actually be better. This would be the best case scenario at the moment. The possibilities of that are the same odds of me winning the US presidential election. It's not impossible. It's just extremely unlikely. The analysis seen by The Guardian before its publication on Wednesday includes information from a monthly survey of Confederation of British Industry members. Our analysis shows that the sectors that will be affected by Brexit and those that are suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown are generally different from each other, says Swati Dhingra, an economics professor who co-authored the report. A simultaneous impact from Brexit and coronavirus will be felt across the business spectrum from the autumn, when the Chancellor Rishi Sunak's pandemic policies aimed at supporting the unemployed end. So this is related to what, apologies, who was it that had asked me at the beginning of the stream whether this is going to impact sorry, I'm reading the comments. Sorry, somebody had asked at the beginning of the stream about Bowler Hat Man's video about the unemployment figures in October, and this is related to it, of course. Now, they could try to extend unemployment assistance beyond October, but I don't see them doing that. So you're going to see a huge number of people unemployed. You're going to see continuous depression in the economy because of the pandemic, and you're going to see Brexit in January, of course, not in October. So the supporting the unemployed end and the new trading environment for the UK outside the EU begins to bite, the research finds. Now, of course, you know, the huge pain is not going to be immediate. It's going to take a period. It's going to take its time. There'll be, you know, a shock at the beginning. There will be an attempt to paper over the cracks in January to say, look, no, Brexit has been a success. Don't worry, everything's okay. This would be to keep business owners happy. They won't be happy, but to try and dampen down their anger. But it will also be to convince the public that Brexit was actually a good idea. The report COVID-19 and Brexit, real-time updates on business performance in the UK by the LSE Centre for Economic Performance shows sectors that entail more human contact, including hospitality, air travel, restaurants, hotels and arts and entertainment have been hardest hit by the pandemic. The effect on other sectors such as scientific industries, professional services, including accountancy and legal services and publishing, have been less severe because they continue to operate with staff working from home, of course. Among those reported continuing to operate with remote working are firms such as Vodafone, Google, the accountancy firm KPMG, GlaxoSmithKline, Rolls-Royce, and the consumer goods group Unilever. But Brexit will impose barriers on those trading goods or services with the EU, whether it's pharmaceutical companies seeking regulatory approval, banks, or services needed to transfer data from servers in the bloc, or car manufacturers or clothes importers being required to fill in customs declarations for the first time in decades. This, I'm just going off topic for a moment, but the idea of these customs declarations, many companies have never had to issue them, never had to actually complete this type of paperwork before. And where are they going to get the staff to do this? Where are they going to get the time? This is going to be a huge cost for these companies. And thereafter survive, okay, I've survived the pandemic. My company has survived the pandemic. And now I'm going to have to fill in all this bloody paperwork. I'm going to have to employ people to do it. So this is an extra cost. And I'm going to have to transfer this cost onto the consumer, which is going to make my products more expensive. And most of these consumers may be sensitive to price at the moment and may decide, look, I'm actually not going to buy these products because they're too expensive. And then the entire economy after that starts to slow down once again. It's insane. Making business operation more difficult is nonsense. It's ridiculous. But this is the Brexit mindset. This is what we voted for. Freedom. This is freedom. This is the cost of freedom. A freedom that you already had, but some people didn't believe existed. The report points out that back in 2017, the government announced that Brexit would be guided by impact assessments across sectors. It has provided detailed analysis in only 10 sectors to date. Only 10, so I assume there are a lot more sectors that haven't been risk assessed, or impact assessed, I should say. The government must move beyond its broad assessment of Brexit impacts to much more fine-tuned plans in preparation for the biggest slowdown of our lifetime, says Josh de Leon, a research assistant at the LSE Centre, who co-authored the report. So this we can see here is net. I don't know if you can see that, guys, but I'll try and make it a bit bigger if possible. Okay, maybe it's a little bit better. So it says industry name. So for example, mining and quarrying. Net increase in business volume between April and June 2020 down. 32%. Brexit predicted effect minus 12.5%. Yeah, so you can see a correlation between companies that are deeply affected by Brexit and those deeply affected by the pandemic. Like if we look at the very bottom, inland transport was minus 100%, 104%. It'll be minus 2% after Brexit. Yes, because, you know, if it's inland, then it's not necessary to have any documentation, or Brexit is not going to have a huge impact on that type of industry. Well, for example, chemicals and chemical products, minus 15% Brexit effect. Hooray! If anyone's in the chemical industry, of course, they have to import certain chemicals to produce other chemicals. Maybe equipment to produce these chemicals will have to be imported. It's not produced in the UK. So this is going to create, it's going to have a negative impact on them. But freedom, remember? Let me read some of your comments before we go ahead. Brexit will soon be costing us more than the UK paid into the EU over the last 47 years put together. I think it already has, George. Anyone else noticing that the most... Oops, so I just scroll back up. Will says, anyone else notice that most days the UK coronavirus death toll exceeds the total of all EU countries combined? I don't know what the current... Let me have a look, actually, at the current... Lenahan, thank you so much for that kind donation. If you have a question or a comment, please post it in the chat. Let me try and open your comment. Thank you so much for that kind donation. Because the super chat has been disabled, YouTube have taken it away from me. So, no, there's no comment from Lenhan. Okay. So the number of new cases in the UK on the 27th of July was 745. The number of deaths was 14. Now, on the 25th, it was 123. So I think on the 27th, because it's towards the weekend, normally there is a change. There are lower numbers counted. But the UK number of deaths are still hovering around 3 figures. And I think that's extremely worrying. I think it's 123 a week. It was the tally was 185 last Friday. Nobody even comments on it anymore. Today's death toll was 119. So this is extremely worrying. It's still 3 figures. In Italy, I think it was Scotland, none for 11 days straight, Max. Why are there so many new cases and so many deaths in the UK at the moment, in Britain? If you want to get angry with an idiot, with confidence claiming lockdown and masks don't work, watch our CAD daily video. Yeah, Sargon of Akkad is licked. 12 days straight, Max, not 11. Wow. It's almost 2 weeks that Scotland hasn't had any deaths. No deaths in England, in Wales, most days now. It's England. Of course, the population of England is much larger than Scotland and Wales. But why are they still having so many cases? Why are there still so many deaths? And why is no one talking about it? I saw gym is open. The number of cases are still too high. And Boris Johnson is opening up gyms and swimming pools. Anyway. Read some more of your comments. England lifted before Wales, and we still have more restrictions. What does the Boris liometer just say about the figures, Max? I think I haven't heard anything from Boris about the figures. You just ignore it, and then it will go away. Certain pubs are jammed, packed pubs and jammed, packed beaches. This is why so many cases, and worse, coming next week, 6 or 7 weeks. Coming in the next 6 or 7 weeks. That meter exploded 2 years ago. Where I buy a Christmas tree, I'm going to put it up and call it 2020 done. Max, I think a lot of it is down to the leave base. Too indifferent, striving for freedom, and idiotic simplicities, and distracted by fever and commitment to you-know-what. I agree. There is a correlation between Brexiteers and people who refuse to wear a mask. People who believe in 5G being the cause of all of this, and that masks are ways of controlling people's minds or something like that. And that there was a meme I saw where they were talking about how masks were the first step. Microchips installed in people by Bill Gates or whatever is the next step. Positive tests in the past week. Night Raven, thank you so much. Mankini donation. Thank you so much for that kind donation, Mankini. Yes, the Mankini. They don't do complex, even the cream of the crop. They say Bill Gates made the virus. Yes. I think they're also saying that Fauci made the virus. Maybe Fauci and Bill Gates made the virus. The numbers made them look bad, so they did what they did with the hospital waiting times. Stopped publishing the figures. If you can't see them, that the problem isn't there. Brexiteers will want tinfoil masks for 5G. Yes, he did. He definitely did. In his secret kitchen of death. He did. He has. Bill Gates used to be famous for producing bad software, and now he's the enemy of the free people. The free world, sorry. Calendar had to be mentioned, of course, yes. There's no escaping the calendar, the damn calendar. Okay, so as the United States is tearing itself apart. Oops, no, I changed that. I want to show you another article. How instead the EU is coming together. So let me just start. All these notifications. Okay. So this is from the week. It says here, so why do some societies, like some couples, fall apart under pressure while others band together? If a crisis brings them together, will that make them stronger in the future? And if they come apart, is that a sign that they should never have been together in the first place? So during the pandemic, there was a crisis just not just the pandemic, but there was a crisis also in the European Union, and many European Union states were looking towards Brussels to for direction, for support. And I criticized the European Union for not stepping in and providing immediate assistance to member states. Now, this was rectified. The European Union came together and they agreed in reasonably short amount of time a support package for member states, especially the southern states that were hit hardest by the coronavirus. And I think now that Europe is stronger because of this. Now, of course, we're still in, it's early days, but I think this is a sign, and I hope I'm right, this is a sign that Europe is going to be stronger. So this article is making comparison between Europe and the United States. Just read some of your comments before we continue. My 6-year-old niece said, "I think it's better if we work together." Wise kid, yes, very wise. Trump, stop counting cases. You're making us look bad. If you stop counting, it would be lower. Even worse than that, Trump was like, because we test so many people and we have positive cases, that means that we're winning somehow. If we didn't test as many people, we wouldn't have so many cases. No, but if you test and you have cases, it means that you have identified them. If you don't test, then it doesn't mean that they don't exist. It means that they are no longer identified. And he's trying to spin it about him, of course, that, well, if we have many cases, it makes me look bad. And we can't have that. So to hell with the country collapsing, to hell with people dying. It's more important that Donald Trump looks well, looks good. Max, use the ad blocker. Yeah, I should do that. Anyway, it says, so this week's exemplar for banding together is the European Union, whose leaders agreed to extraordinary new measures to promote a broad economic recovery in the wake of the novel coronavirus. The agreement represents an about-face for the representatives of the European Union, from the stance the European Union took in the wake of the financial crisis of the late last decade. Okay, so it's just, this part is talking about how the European Union has come together. What I'm interested in what he has to say about in the United States. Oops, let me go down. So he goes on to say, the primary characteristic of the American response to the coronavirus has been disjointedness. Indeed, the lack of any national policy to speak of. Individual states had been responsible for setting up their own testing infrastructure and contract tracing apparatus, setting their own policies with regard to non-pharmaceutical interventions, from lockdowns to mandatory masking, and even placed in competition with one another for PPE. Our federal system does give the states substantial authority and responsibility in these areas, but does not require the federal government to be as derelict as it does not require. Derelict as it has been in building essential common infrastructure or promoting an agreed upon set of best practices. It certainly doesn't require the federal government to use its leverage punitively, refusing, for example, to provide. Sorry, I missed the point. To provide necessary funding to facilitate the opening of schools, and then threatening districts that don't open with financial ruin. So there's this, of course, this idea that you have, and it seems to be more on the right. If the central government is right wing and the local government is left wing, or the opposite party, the opposition, then we try to make them look bad to make us look better. If we're making a disaster, if we're producing a disaster, and they're doing something right, well, we don't support them. We try to undermine them because it's about making us look better. It's not about fixing the problem. It's not about dealing, working together and creating finding a solution. And you see it's a similar situation in the UK at the moment. Boris Johnson is not interested in dealing with this pandemic in the right way, because if he was, then he would go to Scotland and ask them, okay, what are you doing right that I should be doing? But there is this, I think it's both arrogance and an attempt to undermine Scotland, that Boris Johnson and his government don't go to Scotland and say, and this is irrelevant to independence or politics. Go to Scotland and find out what are you doing right and what are we doing wrong, and how can we fix the problem that how can we emulate what you're doing in order to deal with this pandemic. But there is both arrogance and politics involved that doesn't allow that to happen. It was never about consensus politics. It was us versus them. I'm sure Melania Trump is comforting Mr. Trump's testing philosophy as he's applying with what he believes worked for him with that throughout the years. Yes. Scottish divorce now. Come on, folks. Only 88 likes so far. No, it's not possible. Only 88 likes. We're well over 150 earlier on. So that's not acceptable. Hit that like button, people. It's the common sense they talk about. And I think there's another aspect of this that most people in the United States don't talk about, is this decade-long brainwashing that's been, and of course it's mainly on the right, the brainwashing of the public to convince them that the government is your enemy. That the smaller the government, the better the government. The less government is involved in your life, the better. Now, there are some positives and negatives, of course, related to that. But the smaller the government, the better. This is the main thrust of the propaganda wing that's been, of the propaganda that's been pushed on the American people. You don't need the government involved. The government is bad. Big government is very bad. We can do it by ourselves. States can do it by themselves. We don't want the federal government involved. And of course, if people follow that through to its logical conclusion, it means that states and local districts will not have the funding that they need. They will be continually defunded. The likes of charities or NGOs have to step in and look after citizens. And when something like this comes along, where you need both the states and the federal government working hand in hand, instead you have the federal government trying to do one thing and the states trying to do another. And then you have, the perfect storm with Donald Trump, who believes this is all an attempt to make him look bad and to stop him winning in November. And you end up with such a disaster that we're looking at, perhaps at the moment, about 150,000 people have died in the United States. So I think it's 140,000 people have died so far. Probably more than 140, somewhere between 140 and 150,000. And probably by November, it will be over 200,000 people. So these people died not because there weren't resources available to deal with this pandemic, not because the hospitals were not able to treat these people. It's because there was complete how can I say, disconnect between federal government and local government because of politics. Much of the failure at the center of the national power of national power can be laid at the feet of President Trump, who's engaged a complete lack of interest in wielding the power to achieve meaningful collective goals, even those he ostensibly favors, like building a wall with Mexico. But Trump is interested in using power for pure assertion of prerogative. What am I? I really am tired tonight. As he has demonstrated through his abuse of the pardon power, and most recently by sending federal agents to Portland in response to an ongoing protest and damage to federal property. The purpose of his intervention, as my colleague Damon Linker has noted, is precisely to create the very chaos that he claims he wants to quell. Yeah, this is really interesting that Boris Johnson, see, once again, I'm very tired, that Donald Trump, I'm always mixing up Boris Johnson and Donald Trump for some reason. Normally, a candidate would run against the president and say, look, this president is creating chaos. He's an agent of chaos. It's unusual that the president himself would say, look at the chaos we have around us. Elect me once again. in the hair, Max. Separated at birth. But the global view on everything with power to act would have sorted this pandemic, saving millions of lives. It's not black and white concept to have smaller and larger governments at all. Both are bounds, Max. They weren't federal agents. Many private mercenary police from Bigelow Recruitment Agency. This is extremely worrying, what's happening with these. As you said, they're not federal agents, but private mercenaries. Max, please remember person, woman, camera, man, camera, TV. I'm not actually familiar with that. I saw this meme going around about person, woman, man, camera, TV. Is it something to do with this test that Donald Trump had to conduct? Yes, America is getting very fascistic. It's Joe Biden America, but Trump is in charge, and he did nothing but pour gas onto the racial divide in America. Using police for political reasons is fascism. The fact Democrat cities are the only are the only who didn't get protests under control brings another aspect to it. Max, you could run for office. I'd need to clear up my speech first. Americans want freedom to catch COVID-19. Yes, they do. Look up the 100-mile border zone. Trump is using immigration units and swearing in other agents to do this. I think there really is an attempt to create a situation where if there is an unclear election result in November, there is a possibility that Donald Trump will say, okay, I'm not accepting the result. And here is, if you have a problem with it, here is my private army. And this is what's happening at the moment is, Max has had too many baby shams in the Alps today. What's happening is, at the moment in Portland, for example, is a dry run for what's going to happen in November. Now, we thought this was impossible, but we also thought it was impossible that someone like Donald Trump would actually get elected. We thought it was impossible that Donald Trump would run roughshod over the Constitution, that he would enrich himself and people around him and his family. People thought it was impossible that a president would put members of his family into senior positions in his government. We all thought this was impossible until it happened. And I think it's possible that in November, if Donald Trump loses, but loses by a very small margin, he has behind him people who have been paid to create trouble. And they would be probably, I'm not talking about him taking over the army and the army marching on Congress and demanding that he remains president, but certain individuals will go there probably and demand such a request, and they will create trouble, and then the media like Fox News or whatever will put pressure on the Democrats to say, look, these people are protesting because you have not accepted the result that Donald Trump is president. You should accept the result that Donald Trump is president. And these people are concerned. These people walking around with guns are not violent people. They're concerned citizens. They care about the Constitution. They care about the election result. Donald Trump has won. You should respect that. And perhaps with enough pressure, Joe Biden will concede. And they will have succeeded in their fascist takeover of the United States. I hope I'm wrong. But, we thought all of these types of things were impossible. It's not Trump, it's his minions that will go insane when he loses. Max, the stuff about Trump being booted out in November is only part of the story. Once Trump goes, he still has the deplorables. They aren't going anywhere. Money can change the polls. Trump already proved this. Many presidents and politicians have. It's true. He will deny the elections if it's not to his liking. Barr was asked about this today. And he has even said it himself. Well, he wouldn't accept the result if he didn't like it. You're only allowed to care about the Constitution if you've read it. Simple rule that should be in place. Max, are you going to talk about Tommy Robinson leaving the UK because he doesn't feel safe? Tommy Robinson is now a refugee. I didn't know about that. But it is a bit ironic. I wonder why old Bob doesn't come to the live streams. The man is factual and sticks to the boot right in. I expect Barr to try and charge Hillary or Obama with something before the election. This is something I've read about as well, that there's an attempt to... We've broken the internet, 104 likes and 100 viewers. We should double it. We should have 200 likes and only 100 viewers. Okay, before we're getting towards the end of the stream, I just want to look at one more article. It's not fluff, but not fluff at the same time. Hopefully it will appear on the screen. Okay, from the European. So, Brexiteers of the week, and I have a feeling that maybe Anne Whitcomb might actually make it into Fool of the Week, but that I don't want to issue any spoilers, but it's still up in the air at the moment. Oops, close that. Okay, I just want to read the headline. It says here, Brexiteer of the week. Anne Whitcomb proposes shopping hour for face mask protesters. So of course in the Daily Express. So it says here, former Tory. This is hilarious. Go away. Okay. former Tory MP and Brexit Party MEP, you remember she was a member of the MEP, she was an MEP for the Brexit Party, has joined a list of libertarians. I hate that word because these people do not these people are not libertarians, okay? They're right-wingers, they're conservatives who use this label when they don't like something. So, I don't like masks, I'm a libertarian. Okay. Who has reacted to Boris Johnson's approval of face coverings by covering their faces in horror. I suspect that the mask haters will, as I will, avoid the shops as much as possible. But I think if Anne Whittingham avoids anything, avoids, leaving her home, that would be, something positive. But there's light at the end of the tunnel, for Anne has a big idea. Perhaps shops should allow certain hours when this is hilarious. Should allow certain hours when mask dissenters. That's a new one. Can shop unmuzzled in the same way as they have allocated special times for to the elderly, she wrote. If we can now negotiate with COVID-19, negotiate and persuade the virus not to this is the comment from the writer. So if we can negotiate with the COVID-19 and persuade the virus not to be contagious between the hours of, say, 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., I think she's on to a winner. Oh my god, but she's serious. She's actually serious. She thinks that it would be a good idea for people who don't want to wear a mask to be free to go shopping and not to have to wear a mask. Maybe, I'm a skeptic of seatbelts. So I should be allowed to drive around without a seatbelt. Other people, you're not a skeptic, you have to wear a seatbelt, but I don't have to wear a seatbelt. Shouldn't that be the case? I'm a skeptic of drunk driving. I don't believe drunk driving exists. So if I drink a lot and I have an accident, it's nothing related to the alcohol. So I can't be arrested for drunk driving. You can, but I don't, and I should be allowed to at least drink drive within certain hours of the day. This is just so ridiculous. But this is Anne Whittingham. Anne Whittingham has not lost her marbles. I don't think Anne Whittingham ever had any marbles to lose. Mind you, Anne can recall the Spanish flu of 1918. Oh, it burns. No, the Ric Flair. She's as mad as Goose on stilts. Before you know it, it'll be about White Brits hours, probably. Bloody baby sham drinkers need to get off the bloody roads. Max, pull up that picture of Ric Flair. Ric Flair? I'm not sure who you're on about. I have to search for Ric Flair. Okay, Ric Flair. So Ric Flair is a little bit like yes, I can't bring it up here, but I do recommend anyone to look for Ric Flair, and you'll find it looks exactly like Anne Whittingham. They can have Brexit hours as long as the shows are. Let's be realistic. Max has been listening to Pessimist Archive. I think I have. If it's a contagious C-19 person sneezes over a packet of cornflakes, the next person wearing a mask is at risk, of course. It's just complete nonsense. But this is Mrs. Brexiteer, Mrs. Brexit, okay? I think she doesn't have any marbles. I think her mind is completely gone to mush. She hasn't made a lot of sense over the last number of decades. And when she joined the Brexit Party, it was a perfect home for her. The Brexit Party. smashing it once more. I think letting anti-maskers shop separately. Also, even if this was just, let's say, the world goes in completely insane and says, yes, people who don't want to wear masks can go into shops at a particular time. And as someone had said, sorry, I missed I forget who wrote it. Betty Brexit. If someone can go in and sneeze on top of cornflakes, and then you going in with a mask and buying the cornflakes, but also the fact that, well, the staff don't have a choice there. The staff, would be risking their lives. They're already risking their lives. But my God, is she married to Jeff? Maybe. We never see Jeff's wife, so maybe he will introduce her at the end of one of his videos. But the idea, the staff who are already risking their lives would have to risk their lives on another level just to satisfy people who don't believe masks are a solution, or don't believe that masks somehow control people's minds. So guys, we're at the end of the stream. Thank you so much for coming to visit the stream tonight. Just before we visit the end of the stream. What am I saying? I'm really tired tonight. Apologies. I've been looking at Anne Whitcomb for too long. So just before we finish the stream tonight, of course, there will be the One for the Road video. So I just want to thank everyone for coming on the stream. I want to thank, of course, those who have donated to the stream tonight. Thank you so much. Your donations are kindly and gratefully accepted. Remember, if you want, you can become a Patreon. Patreon allows you access to the Discord server where all the fun is, and we have special events once a week where you can actually chat with me directly and other people on some of the moderators on the stream or on the channel. We've got a lot of people on Discord now, and it's a lot of fun. And so I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming on the stream, of course, to the moderators. I couldn't do it without you. You're my backbone. And before we finish, I just want to say stay safe, everyone. Things are getting much more dangerous at the moment. So we're going to watch this last video, which is One for the Road. Let me open it up here.
Are there worse things you could do than to send kids back to school when they're spiking COVID rates in 40 of the 50 states? We're filling up the ICUs. How can you say it's safe to do? Will you reject the CDC? Replace Fauci with Chuck Woolery. And if the teachers all are scared, will you send them thoughts and prayers? I suppose that'll have to do, since there's still no plan from you. You could provide some PPE. Funds from the DOE, but that would force you to confess that your response has been a mess, and that this crisis isn't through. You can boast it's a success if this kills 1% or less. The math teachers will insist that's 500,000 kids. I'm sure you'll claim that's very few, because one thing is always true: you do the worst thing you can do.
Very good. Wonderful voice as well. Thank you so much once again for coming on the solo. For coming, I'm reading the comments. Sax solo, please. No, we need to get rid of that sax solo. Thanks again, once again, for coming on the live stream. I'll see you all next time on Friday night at 9:30. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great evening, great week, guys, and stay safe. Remember, wash those hands. Wear that mask, and as Boris Johnson always says, stay alert. See you guys soon, and have a great one. Good night.